everybody. Welcome back to Higher Density Living. We got incense burning off the yang in here. Wouldn't it? Just to be great if
off
we
the yin or the yang.
What if we had like a how they call it, like a charcoal grill?
Oh yeah.
But we just throw Palo Santo on it.
Yeah, just
and we burn it indoors. We die on camera.
Yeah. Yeah, the
carbon monoxide would be it.
Yeah, we need one of those little things you can plug in to let us know.
Yeah.
Oh, high levels. Okay, cool. I'll open the window.
Yeah, but it's just Palo Santo just billowing clouds.
Yeah, it would be funny. Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
Oh man, this looks like a Joe Rogan podcast with the amount of incense we have burning.
No weed though.
No, weed free. I was all right. So I would like to discuss something here. I was meditating last night, and I tend to get confirmation of thought through the nape of my neck. I got energy back there, and I started to research it. I'm like, what's going on there? Like, if I have a thought and somebody wants to confirm it for me, I feel it. So I go to look this up, and I come across Kundalini energy. It just means the spiraling or coiled energy that apparently goes up the spine from the root chakra.
Our DNA, a lot of things in nature have it.
The double helix.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, wouldn't you know? Law of one. They have only two sections on this. And I'm like, well, this is good. This actually gives me something to start with. So, section 49.5.
On the law of one.
Brief question.
Raw material series.
Long raw response, which is strange. Long response. A monologue. So, Jason, why don't you read 49.5 as the question?
Will you expand on the positive and negative magnetic polarizations in general and how it applies to, say, individuals and planets, etc.? I think there is a correlation here, but I am not sure.
Yes, Don's wondering, he's like, what is with the magnetic poles? Do we have poles as a human being? Can you expand upon this? Well, like if there's energy centers within us, much like the Earth, do they share essentially the same physics? Don's a physicist. So Ra comes in. I am Ra. It is correct. That's got to feel so good. Imagine asking a question and an upper six density
being
collective says that's correct.
Correct.
I'm all set with my life. I'm all done. I'll be all amped up. It says, it is correct. There is a correlation between the energy field of an entity of your nature, so human beings, and planetary bodies. Interesting. So the Earth and other planets share the same sort of physics of magnetic polarization in a physical sense that our human body does. So we got a North Pole, South Pole, Saturn, North Pole, South Pole, with the weird hex thing on it. We have the same thing on our body. North Pole being the crown up here, South Pole, red root chakra down here. And we would need those because that keeps our body in energetic balance also. Doesn't it? Oh my God, I just had a thought.
Go ahead. I want to hear this.
Do you know how I was saying I was receiving energy through the top right here, through the nape of the neck? Well, think about where you defecate or urinate. It comes out through the bottom.
Right.
And where do you eat your food? You take it in through the top. I don't shove it up my ass to eat.
Right.
I know that sounds funny.
Unless you're trying to...
think about it.
Hide cocaine or something.
Which, I'm a mule.
Then you shove it up your ass. Hopefully customs.
Oh my God, it burst.
Yeah, then you're screwed.
The top is taking in energy.
Right.
And the bottom is releasing that energy. It's sending it out. This is really interesting here. So there is an implosion and then a regeneration. It comes out through the bottom and it creates this cycle. Actually, a nice thing if you look at the magnetic poles of the Earth, that's what it does. It's the intake and it goes out. If you look at these fields. So, wow. What we do physically with eating food is also the same thing energetically we're doing that we can't see. Interesting. Wow.
Yeah, and food is energy.
And food is energy. Wow, this is great.
It's funny because the lady that made Post back
cereal?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there
cereal
was a
brand?
There was a lot more to that, but she was like hundreds of millions of dollars, which is a lot of money back then. The richest woman in the world. because she was able to take energy, which is food, and then find the ability, which they've never had, to where it could be stored.
Yeah.
So now you can store energy, and it not go bad.
Especially the grains.
Yeah. So when you look at money, food, all these things, and you look at them as energy, then it gives you the ability to be able to say, oh, okay, especially food, it's like, what type of energy am I putting in my body? So I mean, like you said, or what type of information am I receiving?
Am I receiving?
Yeah.
And then how do I send that back out? Anyway, that's just occurring to me right now at this moment.
I love
it. For all material, so it's talking about nature and planetary bodies. Ra continues. They say. I always want to say he.
I know. Yeah, same.
For all material is constructed by means of dynamic tension of the magnetic field. All material, everything physical, is constructed by the means of tension within a magnetic field.
Yeah, the word tension like really struck out. It's like popping out at me. Like,
tension.
Yeah.
It's this pushing and pulling.
Right.
That's what tension is. Of things in the magnetic field, and things that are affected by that are the atoms. So it's this tension pulling things back and forth that actually gives things structure.
But in nature, it's the same way. The tension is what causes evolution.
Of course it does. It's the push-pull.
Yes.
But the thing is, it's perfect equilibrium too.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
If everything was just pulling, you'd have a problem. If everything was just pushing, you'd also have a problem. But it's push-pull. It's tension. Wow. The lines of force. You got to give it a Ra.
That's why we say he, I think, because it's a masculine Egyptian name.
The name has a masculine.
Yeah, so
Egyptian
if you say Ra, you're automatically thinking
it's
the
like,
god, the sun god, and it's a male.
Yeah, get out of my fucking head. Okay. The lines of force in both cases may be seen to be much like the interweaving spirals of braided hair. So dynamic tensions. So, God, all right. Picture this in your mind. Implosion, regeneration. You take in, it comes back out. But at the same time, it's also spiraling. So this helix of energy, which means you have a spinning toroidal structure, right? It's like the Earth, right? It has poles that come out, but the Earth spins, right? So that means these are constantly braided in themselves while they're going out. Are you picturing that?
Yeah, I'm picturing it, yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, it would just be these like elliptoid circles.
Yeah, that you see, a lot of times you see that.
Yeah.
When they show an Earth and then they show the magnetic current.
But they don't give you the aspect of it actually turning.
Right.
But when you turn it, now it becomes something that, okay, I don't have to get into that anymore. The positive and the negative wind and interweave. They wind. Winding is an amazing word because when things wind, they build tension. They're coming together. There's
it makes it extremely strong. Like if you braid something, with that tension, and then each of those becoming, if you take 5 pieces of hemp, and then you braid it, now you have something that like is measurable strength.
It's a ton of strength, right?
From
Tensile strength has gone up. So, thus, positive and negative wind and interweave, forming geometric relationships. There is a relationship. There's a ratio. There's a balance of this interweaving in the energy fields of both persons, as you would call mind, body, spirit complexes, and planets. Okay. Not only does the planet have its own interweaving, this coiled energy, you have that, and then you, in relation to the planet, are also interconnecting in those fields.
We're just like little cell towers.
We're little cell towers. We're planets within the planet.
Yeah.
Okay? The negative pole is the south pole or the lower pole. So negative south or low. Ground. Okay? Grounding agents here. The north pole, the upper pole, is positive. Okay, great. The crisscrossing. The word choice is amazing. When's the last time you used the word crisscross in conversation?
There's like a 90s rap, like crisscross and make you jump.
Yeah,
see? Or something like that.
I don't think that's the only time I've ever heard you say crisscross. The crisscrossing of these spiraling energies form primary secondary, and tertiary energy centers. I'd really have to build this out visually because this is amazing. Primary, secondary, and tertiary energy centers. You are familiar with the primary energy centers of the physical, mental, and spiritual body complex. Secondary points of the crisscrossing of positive and negative center orientation revolve around several of your centers. The yellow ray center may be seen to have secondary energy centers in elbow, in knee, and in subtle bodies at slight spacing from the physical vehicle at points describing diamonds about the entity's navel area surrounding the body.
Okay, we need to...
Holy
we're gonna lose people here.
Smokes.
So we need to get into this because this is really... Because he's talking about geometry, and they also have to understand how specific they were. Explain this to people, how specific they were with being able to channel and what had to be done. To get to kind of like to tune. Remember the old radios we had to tune in the frequency, and you're messing with the dial, messing with the dial.
I literally just had a conversation about this the other night with an outside third party, and the fact that you're bringing this up is incredible, serendipitous. So in order for Carla in the group to channel this entity,
yes,
Ra calls it a narrow band wavelength for their contact. They had to have a specific layout of items on a table above Carla's head when she was channeling. A chalice, a candle, and a Bible. I think those were the three items.
And the Bible's not, I want to clarify this, it's because it was important to her.
It's only because it was important. It has nothing to do with the religious text.
Right.
It's something that opened her up in her mental state to be able to receive that contact because it's something significant.
If this would have been in India, it would have been the Gita, or something like that. Yeah.
So on the table, they were in a specific geometric pattern with specific angles.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the interesting part. Ra would say, they would ask, they're like, how is the table set up? And Ra would say, it's good, but it's off by a certain amount of degrees.
Mm-hmm.
What Ra is saying is not just the fact that the items are off in their angle of attack. When somebody comes into the table and they say, oh, it's off by 0.7 degrees, you do a slight shift. You also have to think in your mind, oh, it's off a little bit. I need to retune my thought process. Mm-hmm. So the physical items were a representation also of the spiritual focus that was happening of these individuals. So when Ross says it's off, that means the group collectively is not totally on point today.
Well, all three of them are physical, mental, and spiritual body complex.
Correct.
So when we're talking this geometry, it has that full effect on all three of them.
Because everything is one and the same. That's why they call it law of one.
So whenever he's talking about elbow and your belly button and all that stuff, and we'll get into that here in a second, he's specifically talking spiritual, physical, and mental.
Yes.
So you have to look at that. This isn't just some spiritual woo-woo stuff. This is affecting you physically and mentally.
Yes. And all these things are happening at the same time. So let's talk. So we know the primary points, which is physical, mental, and spiritual. Those are the three primaries of this crisscrossing of energy. Then you have secondary points of the positive and negative centers. Orientation revolve around about several of centers. So the yellow ray center. So now we're talking about chakras, energy centers.
Because with geometry, you have to have a center. You have to start from a point.
It needs a point so that the vertex can come off of.
Yeah.
Okay, your vertice. The yellow ray center may be seen to have secondary energy centers in the elbow. So do you see where my elbow sits here on my body? Mm-hmm. I would say then that this is probably where my yellow chakra would sit in my body, depending on where the length, the geometry, right, the ratio here of this bicep area down to where it lies on my stomach. Essentially, it's just above the belly button, which is your orange, right? So,
what's interesting, because in evolutionary psychology, women and men have found, I think we'll have to look this up, but I think it's 0.7, the difference between like your waist ratio with your torso or whatever, to be the most attractive for mating.
Interesting.
So, you get a guy that's like chiseled and his waist is kind of thin and he's kind of thicker, muscular, then you're like, well, this guy, could mate with me and we could have strong children.
That's interesting.
So, it's funny how our mind automatically has this perception of these ratios.
Yeah, it has perception of geometry.
Yeah.
So let's expand upon that. It says the yellow ray center may be seen to have secondary energy centers in the elbow. So whatever is happening here in my core, because of the output of the energies in this area, it's also having it here in the elbow part of my body and in the knee. So this is also affecting the joints. So I bet you the ratio between me lifting my arm and creating this sort of area from knee to elbow to just above belly button is defining the output area of that yellow energy center.
Which I think on the physical side of things, if you're having knee problems or elbow problems, you probably have a yellow chakra issue.
Now we're talking.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to be practical.
And that's essentially book 4 of Raw. So in the knee and in the subtle bodies at a slight spacing from the physical vessel, the physical vehicle at points describing diamonds about the entity's navel surrounding area surrounding the body. Okay, so not only internally, but there's a field that's generated. So there's also energy that sits outside. So you don't say, oh, you get those aura photos.
Mm-hmm.
There's energy that radiates beyond the body. And they said there's also energetic points sitting outside that's actually not touching the physical. Much like the earth. I mean, like, we're protected with this magnetic field in a lot of senses, especially from things that happen from the sun. But the thing is, it's not the physical earth. You can't see it with your eyes, but it is there protecting that. There is energy that sits past the physical area.
I like how he says points, like points of a diamond. So,
Don't you think they love using diamond?
Yeah.
They love the idea of crystallization, perfect, coherent light. That's why diamond shines so well and create these rainbows. There's no issues internally. And a diamond is focused into multiple points. It has facets on it. And the facets have perfect geometry. And so I'm actually interested about what diamond shape they'd be talking about. Or is it...
That's what I was thinking, like what shape, or would they...
Is it atomically how a diamond is actually developed?
Well, I think all diamonds have points, obviously.
They all have points.
So if no matter the shape, it's the idea of this energy crisscrossing across points.
Yeah.
Because you have the center, and now you have to have what do they call that in geometry? The part like you were talking about earlier. So you have the center, and then from there, because I'm just picturing like a diamond.
Yeah, you got vertices.
Like shine bright like a diamond. So I'm just picturing a diamond, and then that energy, crisscrossing and moving from each of those points.
From each of those vertices.
And it's centered in the navel.
Oh, this is so cool. So they expand here. One may examine. You may. No one's telling you have to do it, but they're saying you may do it through your choice. One may examine each of the energy centers for such secondary centers. Some of your peoples work with these energy centers, and you call this acupuncture. I just had acupuncture the other day. This is awesome. However, it is to be noted that there are most often anomalies in the placement of energy centers, so that scientific precision of this practice is brought into question. So, for a long time, people in the field of acupuncture fought to get FDA approval.
Right.
To actually get this thing considered to be a practice for healing. Because, someone's like, I got to put it in your meridian line. Well, everybody has that in different areas. There's variances for every single human body.
And that's what he's saying, just as there was variance for the things that were on the table, the Bible, the chalice and stuff.
Correct.
For her, it's going to be different than if Dawn was sitting on the table.
And here's one of the most amazing lines about that. Like most scientific attempts at precision, it's not scientific successes at precision, it's attempts. Like most scientific attempts at precision, it fails to take into account the unique qualities of each creation. That's so true. And this is what's happened with marketing and everything else. It loses the aspect of the uniqueness of every single individual. Everyone needs to be put in buckets. Oh, you have this problem, you take this medication like 500,000 other people. No, it doesn't work for me like it works for them. There's uniqueness in all of these. So, the most important concept to grasp about the energy field is that the lower or negative poles will draw the universal energy into itself from the cosmos. This is freaking nuts. Therefrom, it will move upward to be met and reacted to by the spiraling energy moving downward from within. Okay, so we have a spiraling energy coming in from the crown going down, and then we have one that's being physically pulled from the cosmos, cosmic energy coming up through the groin in the body. The measure of an entity's level of ray activity is the locus wherein the South Pole outer energy has been met with the inner spiraling positive energy. Okay. Your internal creational energy outside of the physical realm, so the non-physical energy of spirit, is moving from the crown down. Physical energy, things that are tangible and measured here in our state of physics, come up through the root chakra and go up. So the physical meets the non-physical, material, non-material. So the spiritual aspects are the positive aspects, not in the sense of being good or bad. It's just a positive polarization. And then the negative polarization, creating perfect balance and equilibrium, is the physical aspects of energy. Woo.
I like how they say moving downward from within. Not external.
It's not external. It's totally internal.
Yes, it's totally internal. So that's very, very important.
You're almost opening up your thoughts to say, okay, I want to meet this energy that I am pulling in. And this is an incredible aspect, because then your mind has to be in equilibrium.
Yes.
None of these, not one sentence in the entire raw material contradicts itself. Not one sentence isn't in perfect mathematical balance. There's balance and geometry to everything that's said. Not one sentence steps on anybody's free will. It is frankly, in my mind, one of the most incredible pieces of literature I have ever read in my entire life. And my life's been short so far. And here's the last part of 49.5, and we'll cut this episode. As an entity grows more polarized, this locus will move upwards. The phenomenon has been called by your people the Kundalini. However, I love however, it may better be thought of as the meeting place of cosmic and inner, shall we say, vibratory understanding. To attempt to raise the locus of this meeting without realizing the metaphysical principles of magnetism upon which this depends is to invite great imbalance.
And so that's a very important
This is a huge statement. If you go over and you look at Kundalini yoga or tantric yoga, all they're doing is thinking about the physical. How do I move the cosmic energy up higher and higher and higher in my body? But I lack the understanding to meet it with my creational thoughts where it needs to go, that locus point. So now my body's out of balance. I've raised up the meeting point so it's up in my face. So I've essentially outbalanced my body with more negative polarization than positive, because I lack the understanding in a spiritual sense of what is going on here.
Well, they said you lack the metaphysical principles of magnetism.
It's not physical principles.
Yeah, it's metaphysical.
It's the unseen principles that you don't understand. And because of that lack of balance, because you're only focused on the physical, now you're completely out of whack. Your energy centers are now shifted.
And you see that with spiritual teaching and everything. Everybody always focuses so much on positive.
Yep.
And they're not understanding the negative is just as important as the positive.
Let's think about the planet. Imagine if our pole shifted to like 75% South Pole, 25% North Pole.
Oh, yeah.
Our weather patterns are fucked. We'd have chaotic storms. Oceans would rise out of control. It'd be a mess because the Earth is now out of balance. And if you begin to get something to spin that has that sort of asymmetry, you're going to have the most insane precession. Time's going to be thrown off. We're going to be a mess. It wouldn't be good. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for the planet as a body, which shares the same physical principles and metaphysical principles that a human body also has.
So whenever you look at magnetism in and of itself, because he described it earlier, he was going into that whole process, with center orientation and energy centers and all that. And then we look at this Kundalini practice.
Yeah.
What you said is very important, is that they're missing part of the process.
Well, Kundalini is very dogmatic. It's very dogmatic.
Well, as any spiritual teaching, it becomes, you get gurus and then all that stuff happens. But if you're sitting here and you're focused on, because I hear people like this, they'll say, I have to clear my chakras. It's like, explain that to me.
What does that mean?
They don't know what that means.
They have no clue.
They've gotten some emotional pump, like you do with your muscles, some emotional pump off of doing a practice that they have no internal awareness of actually what is happening.
You know what it reminds me of? It's like, go drive a car. Well, how do you start it? How do you steer it? No one's told you. You haven't thought about it first.
You're not in reality, because he's basing it off of scientific principles here, and saying you need to understand these so you understand what's going on in your body, on the spiritual, physical, and the mental side of things.
Yeah.
But you are doing something in belief is basically what you're doing in hopes that this changes you. And so the only reality you have is a false sense of reality because you're basing it off of just pure emotion.
Yeah, and there's no objective
I
reality.
feel so good. I did yoga today, and we did a clearing of my chakras.
No.
What did you do?
What did you actually do? Where's the objective reality? Don't tell me you saw an angel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, when I was doing this, and then an angel came down and touched me at the moment.
How do you know it was an angel? Judging off of your reference of what other historical texts have said angels look like, you have no clue.
You're basing it off of your bias.
It's a belief of association.
Yeah, which I get. My dreams, I've had some pretty wild people and beings and all different kinds of things. And we all have, every single one of us, have had different interactions with
nice word.
Identities. But as far as it being reality, that's like the whole DMT experience. Everybody sees elves, right? Mm-hmm. So, but this becomes a problem because I know that everybody sees elves and most everybody sees elves. So I'm going to see elves. Yeah, it's already been primed. So I'm going to see elves whenever I do DMT. Right. Was that the experience I had? Did I enter a third dimensional? Did I actually see these beings, from that different dimension? I don't know. Is it based on reality? I have no idea. I do know I can take science and physics and understand this and say, oh, this is backing up what Ross said.
Yeah.
So now I need to say, oh, okay, my elbows, my knees, my yellow chakra, the area that I'm into. Yeah. So now I can look at it and say, how do I balance out that energy? So that's a question of my self-awareness where I begin. And the answer's within. He's giving the answer here, but because I want to be really specific with this, I think it's important because you said it's creational thoughts.
Yep.
It's creational thought. So as I'm having these creational thoughts in my head, and thoughts create action and action creates, we're little energy beings, so as I'm creating these thoughts in that sense, and I'm understanding reality, now I have a responsibility to act out on those. Correct. And that, to me living in those truths create balance. Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Because everybody wants to, no one wants the responsibility. They want the emotion or the feeling. Mm-hmm. I want to go to church on Sunday, hear really cool music, and listen to a pastor, feel really great. I went to church for an hour, and I feel amazing. Let me go to the buffet and go eat, a shitload of food.
Yep.
And I'm great. Spiritual, I'm done for the week.
Right.
There's no responsibility in any of that.
No.
And I've had to use an external source to balance me, which it's not. It's a false sense of balance. Whether you're doing a yoga practice, which yoga is great, but whether you're doing a yoga practice or you're going to church or you're kneeling up and down in a Catholic church, whatever it may be, all of those practices are not in alignment with reality.
No.
You're living a false sense of reality.
And if you want to live a real one, come back for part 2.